Second Mothers. I'm coming to you from Wheaton, Illinois, near Chicago, and I'm so excited today to be with two amazing second mothers who are doing so much for our community. This is Sasha Parker and her colleague Joyce Dalrymple. As you know, they have an amazing podcast where they've been serving second mothers all of this year, recording incredible interviews of foster care and adoption stories, and they're both incredible women. So first, I just want to give them a minute to introduce themselves. So Sasha, I know you have 9 kids.
Yes.
But can you give us briefly who your family is?
Yeah, so my husband and I have 4 biological children, and then after we had our 4, we began adopting. So we adopted 5 kids in 8 years. Our first adoption was a domestic adoption, and we have an open relationship with our daughter Mia's birth mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then we adopted 2 from Ethiopia and 2 from China. So that's just a picture of my family. But I do need to say I also grew up in a family with 2 adopted sisters on either side of me. This is like in the early 70s. And so that really shaped me and marked me as a bio sibling with, and there were 8 kids in my family. So I think that is actually, as I'm learning, that is a huge piece of my story and just how my heart has been shaped. So a little bit about me.
Talk about qualifications. Okay, so Joyce, tell us about you, because as I was just saying, you've been a journalist. You've been an attorney working with refugees and people coming to this country. Mm-hmm. Now you're a pastor. Yeah. So I don't know how you all fit this all in.
Well, I didn't do it all at once.
Okay.
So it was like one at a time.
And you're an adoptive mom. So tell us about your family.
Yeah. So I've only adopted one time.
Don't say only.
Yes. But we adopted Hannah just 2 years ago. She was almost 4 when we brought her home from China. And even though I had been in the space, the foster care and adoption space, through a nonprofit that I volunteered for and had kind of foster kids in and out of our home with respite, I thought I was prepared. And it's a different story when it is you're walking in that journey, right? And so, but it has both the brokenness of that and learning about my own need as an adopted child of God has been it's been a hard but beautiful journey in that. And my other, I guess, in my journey through being a journalist, I did a documentary on adopted children from China.
Oh, I didn't know
during that time, like, I felt the call to adopt. It was really through interviewing all these families and just falling in love with them and their kids. It was like both my husband and I at that point were like, we're adopting. And this was when we were, I think, before we even got married. But it was fast forward, almost like 15 plus years later that it became a reality.
I love that. That's amazing.
So God's fingerprints have been all over the
He's
story.
been preparing you.
Yes.
So what motivated you two to start the podcast? How was that decision made? Or was it your journalism background or your own struggles?
I think I still remember the first time we sat down to talk. It was on a couch like this and sharing our adoption stories and kind of bonding over them.
Right.
And I think I felt I felt 2 things really strongly. One, I wanted to be Sasha's friend.
Yes.
Who
wouldn't?
And I had just moved to Wheaton, and I'm like, I have no friends. Will you be my friend? And the other strong thing I felt was they're so these are God's stories. Each of these individual adoptions are God's stories, and wanting to encourage other people who are struggling in the midst of that.
Right.
Yeah. That God is in it in the very, very hard places.
Yeah.
And we have felt like this is spiritual warfare.
Yes.
And this is we wanted to get a message out to remember how God called them to adopt in the beginning.
Right.
How God is in the midst of the heart, and He's not done writing the story.
Right.
And kind of with all of Sasha's experience, she's lived it in so many ways, right? And sort of my journalism background, we just felt like maybe this is something we could start and
Amazing.
This is
Right.
pre-pandemic.
Yes, this
Right.
was.
But you've
Yeah.
been releasing episodes all
Yeah,
year, and
during
they've
that
been
pandemic,
incredible.
Yeah.
So, Sasha, what are some of the themes that you've seen emerge in the last year? I know you've focused on brokenness and
Yeah.
people being very raw. You go very deep with these
Mhm.
stories.
Yeah, it's interesting because as a child, I was very observant, and I in my home, just watching all the different dynamics going on, and I so badly wanted there to be encouragement especially for my parents and for all of my siblings. There were 8 of us, but just saw this need for, we cannot lose hope in the midst of the
Right.
hard callings that we're in. And so it was interesting when, even before we adopted, I remember wanting to understand this journey even more, even from my parents' perspective, and
Right.
just seeing some of the hard things that they had gone through. And I remember specifically praying one time, it was after I had just 2 biological kids, just asking the Lord, I want to see this through your eyes. I want to understand this journey. And really surrendering the narrative to almost be retaught to see through his eyes. So how interesting that we'd have 2 more kids, and then the Lord was like, boy, do I have a plan for you. If you want to know, if you want to understand, you have to go through it and you have to live it out. So actually the cool thing is, and this is what I think one of the themes is that through just surrendering to the Lord and then Him calling us into this space of adoption, we saw there was a lot of pain in my early years as a child, just with adoption, but I saw the Lord redeeming a lot of that pain as we move forward in ways that I was like, as we brought different children home, it was like the Lord, He is, I guess, I want people to know who are in the thick of it that He is not,
Tell them.
that He is not done writing this story, and you are in the middle of it, and your labor is not in vain. And He is with you in this pain. He is with you in this chaos, because it can be so chaotic. But I look for the redemption because Jesus rose from the dead, so there is going to be redemption. So I have seen God bring healing to different wounds that I've had as a child, and one of the things specifically that the Lord did, and these are the stories that I think need to be told, because I think we need encouragement and we need hope. The enemy wants to bring us down and wants us to be discouraged and feel isolated, and that these stories don't matter.
Right.
But one of the most beautiful things when we stepped out and adopted our first daughter, it was a domestic adoption, an open adoption, and the Lord brought so much healing through our daughter's birth mom, who, because my sisters had a touch of rad, maybe more than touch, but I was often sort of feeling that from them. And here this birth mom comes into our lives, and we just want to love on her, but what we weren't expecting was for her to receive us and love on our family. And I mean, I remember when she told me that you are like the sister I never had. And I remember I told her, you don't understand how much that means to me. I mean, and there was this beautiful bond that God was building between this broken birth mom, this broken woman, and brought this beauty out of just brokenness, really. But I've seen just God sowing seeds of redemption in each one of our adopted kids, and it hasn't been easy. There's been really hard periods, but I will say, just hang in there and look, get in the Word, stay in the Word, because that is how we have the eyes to see.
Yes.
But
I love what you said about surrendering the narrative.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so hard to do, like surrendering the narrative. So Joyce, you were saying you feel like most of the parents that you've interviewed, there was a theme of what called them to adopt or foster, right? Can you unpack that a little bit?
And I mean, I think there's different motivations. It's for each family. It could be a little bit different what draws you initially to it. But I think as they are walking in the journey, it's a journey of faith, huge journey of faith,
right?
In terms of like, Are we gonna, like, even in the beginning, are we gonna have enough money for it? Are
Right.
we going to like what kind of special needs, what kind of different
Yes.
things?
Yes.
And then that's just the beginning. Like, after you bring the child home, there's new steps of faith you have to take. Because oftentimes from the trauma, there emerges
Right.
things that you don't see in the beginning, and it comes
Right.
out as they
Exactly.
grow. There's the beginning initial. There's more as they
Right. The
And
more
so-
more comfortable they
Yeah.
feel, the more
yeah,
things.
and I, I've only had Hannah home for 2 years, but it was sort of like we had a honeymoon period, and then
Right.
there was all this anger that came out,
Right.
and I thought, oh, I have so much love in my heart for her, but also just having a hard time bonding in the midst of that. And then you're like, am I good enough? Like, do
Right.
I have what it
Then you
takes
start
to
to
be their
doubt
parent?
yourself. Yes.
Um,
Even though you already had 2 girls and you'd already
yes.
been a successful mom. And so we were talking before the interview, like, this is the journey we're all on together, because now we have all these women, you know, various ages, but all, you know, a little older. I'm shocked how many young women. I mean, we had a conference recently, and so many of the moms there in their 20s haven't had biological children yet, and they're already bringing in really hard kids from foster care. I mean, this is a trend, and these young moms.
the only way God can, like, the only way you can do it is you realize this is beyond me, and that's the
Yes.
point I got to. Is that even though I had my biological kids and they were doing, you know, they were
Yes.
stable and fine, I got to a point where I knew I could not do this alone.
Yes.
It required something beyond me, and like I was so desperate, like
Yes.
calling out to God in prayer, and I
Yes.
felt God meeting me over and over again with a capacity that I didn't have, both in my heart
Right.
to love in a way that it was not tested before in that way.
Yes.
And I think you experience it in those places where you don't even like your children sometimes because of the things they do, but God gives you this love beyond
Supernatural
yourself.
love.
Right.
And you
Supernatural
it's
love.
supernatural, and you realize that's actually the gospel of how Jesus loved us.
Yes.
When we keep turning our backs
Yeah.
on Him,
Yes.
when we are so broken, like He keeps coming after us. It's like relentless. Like He
Right.
pursues us, and so that's the place where we receive that, and that's the only way we can do that for our children, right?
We
that's
have
the
to.
gospel.
We have to.
Yes.
I remember one time one of my children was talking to me about the way one of my other children was acting, and she said, how can you, still be so kind to her when she's treating you like this? And I said, really, it's supernatural.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Jesus has just given me so much love for her.
Yes.
And I remember one time, actually, it sounds like a cliche, but like you, I was crying out to the Lord, how can she reject me like this? And God was like, now you know how I feel.
Yeah.
Right? We
Yeah.
all reject Him, right?
Right.
So
Yes.
for me
Yes.
on this journey, and I've been at adoption for 25 years now, and I grew up in an adoptive
Yes,
family. So
right.
that's something you and I share.
Oh.
My parents adopted in the 60s
Yeah.
when,
Nobody.
none of this was known. There were no books. There were no
Yeah.
podcasts. The two things that I hear you all saying, which I have also experienced, is you have got to have the gospel. You have to drink from that font. You have to
Yes.
stay in the vine, whatever
Yes,
term you
yes.
want to use. You will not you will not get there in your own strength. And number two, we have to have each other.
Yeah.
Because,
Right.
like, when you're talking about how hard it was with your daughter and all that, someone else who hasn't been through it would be like, what's wrong with her? What does she
Yeah.
mean that way? She gets this beautiful baby from
Yeah.
China. What could be, we have to have each other in this journey.
Yeah,
We have to. And so you all are doing such a great job of building community through your podcast, sharing these hard stories, and I especially think, and you pointed to this, how it's been hardest for your mom, because we know with these attachment issues, it's just the way we're wired. It gets directed at the mom.
Right.
Yes.
And even though I have the most wonderful, supportive husband, many of us do, but even my husband will say, even if I make the correction, they're mad at you, right?
Yeah, right. It's true.
It's so
So,
true.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to work with you all and some of the other women that, we've been getting to know each other and collaborate, because I feel like we all have to unite as moms so that these younger moms who are coming into this now, they realize they have a community to step into.
Right.
They're not alone.
Yes.
So if a young mom like that happens to be watching this, briefly, because there's so much you could say, but what would be a word of advice for the mom who just received 2 children from foster care? She hasn't been a parent before. What would you say to encourage her?
I would say that, as Jody mentioned, the community, this is such a gift, these spaces to get connected in, and just to know that you are seen and known by the Father. And often He makes that known by bringing you into the fold of other women who have gone before you, because the enemy wants to separate you and make you feel isolated and make you feel like wants you to doubt even just the sovereignty of the Lord and how did you get to this place, and it's just so many things will get challenged in your head, as you're like, did we really hear the Lord right? But just to know that He is with you, and we are telling you as women who have walked through the fire, He is faithful.
Right.
And you may be
Don't
in this,
give up.
Don't give up. And there is the body of Christ here. There are women who would love to just pray over you right now, and we are with you in this journey, and we need each other.
Yes, and if you find one woman, like I have had women write me, on Facebook message, and I'll say, where do you live? I will find a woman in my church who's my age. One of her children, they adopted 3 kids from foster care. They live somewhere else, and I said, you need to connect them to me because and they're like, oh no, it's going fine, everything's gonna be great. And the wife, she was like, I thought I was by myself. I thought it was just me. What about you, Joyce? What would you say for encouragement?
Just kind of following what you said is like the Lord sees you.
Yes.
And I think so much of the time as mothers, we're like giving because there's like all these urgent needs. But self-care and soul care is going to be so important, not just for yourself, but for your kids, right? Like, so if you're giving so much, but not receiving from the Lord and being connected in community, you will run dry.
Right.
And I know for myself, I just find I get triggered, and it's like, I am a better mother when I am, using your language, Jody, just connected to the vine.
Yes.
And being connected to the vine, you're also connected to other people in the vine, right?
Yes.
And just being abiding and just being drawing from that in the Word and prayer and community. Because this is for the long haul. Like, it's not just they'll have like bumps, but like you're in this for the long haul.
Exactly.
And I just love the picture from Scripture of like the tree planted by streams of living water. Like whenever drought comes, you're not. It's like the external stuff, like heat, drought, whatever is coming, but your roots are deep. You're rooted and grounded in the Lord, and so just continue to do that. And
you have to take care of yourself, because if you go down, the whole ecosystem goes down. Right?
It will.
It will
happen.
And so we always put ourselves last. But you have to. You will get emotionally, physically, spiritually sick. And it's like the cliche of putting your own oxygen mask first. You know you're holding up the whole operation. You have to do that self-care. And I'm preaching to all of ourselves. You have to make it a priority. I always laugh. Joyce Meyer used to say she'd lock herself in the prayer closet, and the kids would be banging on the door. And she'd say, "You better hope I don't come out of this prayer closet." It's like that. You have to make that a priority, because unless you fill up, no one can drink from an empty cup, and you have to be able to pour out. So, will you please tell the moms watching how they can find your podcast? Tell us the name and how they can find it, and I'll put it in the notes.
Yep, it's Adopting Hope. And you can find it on iTunes. You can Google it because it's on the Christianity Today website. under their podcast tab, so you can find it in those ways. But yeah, we would love to connect with you through that, and
great, amazing stories on there. You guys are excellent
and
interviewers.
Jody's on our show.
Yes.
Well, after you got past her, it was rusty at first. It
awesome.
started out rusty, but it got better as it went
No.
along.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Love you guys.
Love you too.
I'm so happy we all got to be together.
Yes.
Group hug and
Yes.
more things in the future.
Yeah.
For
Love
sure.
that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. God
Bless
bless
you.
Bless you. He sees you, and we love you.
Does.
Bye.